They tried to steal my husband's grave plot before his body was even cold. I'm Catherine Morrison, and that's how I learned what Stephen's family really thought of me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began, back when I still believed family meant something. Stephen and I met at a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, 12 years ago. I was a struggling software developer drowning in student loans. He was a systems analyst with dreams bigger than his paycheck. Our first date lasted 9 hours. We talked about building something meaningful, something ours. 6 months later, we got married at a tiny courthouse in Seattle with 2 witnesses we pulled off the street. Everyone said we were crazy. Maybe we were. We maxed out 3 credit cards to launch Morrison Tech Solutions from our 1-bedroom apartment in Tacoma. I remember eating ramen for dinner while coding until 3 a.m., Stephen bringing me coffee and kissing my forehead, whispering, "We're going to make it, Kat. I promise." And we did. God, we really did. 12 years of 18-hour days, rejected proposals, and breakthrough moments. We landed Microsoft as a client in year 3, Amazon in year 5. By our 10th anniversary, we had 47 employees and an office in downtown Seattle with a view of the Space Needle. Stephen would stand at that window every morning with his coffee, and I'd watch him smile like he couldn't believe we'd actually pulled it off. Last Tuesday, a drunk driver ran a red light on Interstate 5. Stephen died instantly. The police officer who came to my door said he didn't suffer. I wanted to ask him how he could possibly know that, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The world just stopped. The funeral was small. Stephen never wanted a fuss. Our employees came, our clients, a few friends from college. But when I looked up from my husband's casket, I saw them. Linda, Stephen's mother, wearing black Chanel and checking her phone during the eulogy. Richard, his older brother, who hadn't called Stephen in 3 years, suddenly front and center, playing the grieving sibling. They barely looked at me. No hug. No tears. Linda touched my shoulder once and said, "We'll talk soon, dear," in a voice that made my skin crawl. After the service, I stood alone by the grave as they lowered Stephen into the ground. That's when I saw it. Linda and Richard in the parking lot, huddled close with a man in an expensive suit. Not mourning, scheming. The man handed Richard a folder. They all glanced toward me, and Richard smiled. Not a sad smile. A satisfied one. I should have known then. I should have seen it coming. But I was drowning in grief, and I missed the sharks circling in the water. 7 days after I buried my husband, they came for everything we built. I was sitting in our home office in Bellevue, surrounded by sympathy cards I couldn't bring myself to open, when the doorbell rang. 3 sharp, aggressive rings. Not the gentle press of a grieving visitor bringing casseroles and condolences. Through the peephole, I saw Linda, Richard, and a man I didn't recognize carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my first car. I should have pretended I wasn't home. God, I wish I had. "Catherine, sweetheart," Linda cooed as I opened the door, pushing past me without invitation. "We need to talk about Stephen's final wishes." Final wishes? My hands started shaking. Had Stephen left a letter? Some message I hadn't found yet? The stranger extended his hand. "Gerald Moss, attorney at law. I have an office in downtown Seattle. I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Morrison." His grip was cold, mechanical. He'd probably said those exact words 1,000 times. They settled into my living room like they owned it. Gerald opened his briefcase with practiced precision, pulling out a stack of documents bound in blue legal backing. "This is difficult," he began. "But Stephen came to see me 6 months ago. He wanted to ensure his family would be taken care of if anything happened to him." My heart stopped. 6 months ago? Stephen and I were planning our 12th anniversary trip to Hawaii 6 months ago. He never mentioned a lawyer. He never mentioned this. Gerald slid the papers across my coffee table. The one Stephen and I had bought at an estate sale in Olympia, refinished together on a sunny Sunday afternoon. I stared at the header. Business Transfer Agreement. Stephen wanted Linda and Richard to have 50% ownership of Morrison Tech Solutions, Gerald said flatly, to secure the family's future. The words didn't make sense. I read them again.
And again.
50%. Half of everything we built. Half of my company. That's impossible, I whispered. Stephen would never. It's his signature, Catherine. Richard leaned forward, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never noticed before. Hunger. Right there. Dated March 15th. Notarized and everything. I looked at the signature. It looked like Stephen's. The loops, the confidence slant. But something felt wrong. Off. This doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't he tell me? Linda sighed dramatically. Because he knew you'd react like this, dear. You always were so possessive about the business. Stephen wanted to protect his blood family. You understand. Possessive? We built that company together. Every client, every contract, every all-nighter. It was ours. I need time, I said, my voice barely audible. I need to have my lawyer review this. Richard's expression hardened. There's nothing to review. It's done. We just need your signature on the transfer documents, and we can handle everything quietly. Keep this professional. Professional? My grief was morphing into something else. Something sharper. My husband died 8 days ago, and you're here demanding half my company? His company, Richard corrected. And now it's a family matter. Sign the papers, Catherine. Don't make this ugly. Get out. Excuse me? I said get out of my house. Now. Gerald stood smoothly, gathering his documents. Mrs. Morrison, I understand you're emotional, but my clients are entitled to their inheritance. If we don't resolve this amicably, we'll be forced to file a lawsuit. You have 48 hours. They walked toward the door. Linda paused, touching my cheek with ice-cold fingers. Stephen would want his family taken care of, Catherine. Don't disappoint him in death the way you did in life. The door closed behind them. I stood there, frozen, clutching that document. Stephen's signature stared back at me like an accusation. Had I ever really known my husband at all? I'm sorry, Catherine. This might actually hold up in court. Those words from David Chen, the best estate attorney in Seattle, hit me like a second funeral. We were sitting in his office on 4th Avenue, rain hammering against the windows, and he was telling me I might lose everything. But Stephen never mentioned this. I insisted, my voice cracking. We told each other everything. He wouldn't just give away half our company without. The signature looks authentic. It's notarized, dated appropriately. David pushed his glasses up, looking genuinely sympathetic. Unless you can prove forgery, which is nearly impossible, or find evidence that he was coerced. Catherine, you need to prepare for the possibility that this is legitimate. I walked out of that office into the Seattle drizzle feeling like I was drowning on dry land. It got worse. So much worse. 2 days later, Richard filed an emergency injunction. Our business accounts frozen. Payroll frozen. Operating expenses frozen. I got the notification while trying to process vendor payments for our biggest project with Boeing. Everything just stopped. My phone rang. Jeremy, my business partner, and Stephen's college roommate. Kat, what the hell is going on? I just got a call from our bank. They won't release funds for the Henderson contract. We've got 17 people working on that project right now, and I can't pay them. Richard filed an injunction. He's claiming joint ownership and... Joint ownership? Catherine, I need you to fix this. Like now. I've got employees threatening to walk. If we breach the Henderson contract, we're done. Completely done. The line went dead. Then the whispers started. Sarah Chen from Microsoft called, her voice careful, uncomfortable. Catherine, I heard some concerning things. About you and Stephen. About your marriage. What are you talking about? Linda reached out to several of our mutual contacts. She's saying you were controlling. That you isolated Stephen from his family. That he was trying to escape, and... She paused. Some people are wondering if the accident wasn't really an accident. My blood turned to ice. She's saying I killed him? Not directly. But she's implying... Look, I don't believe it, but she's making a lot of noise in our industry circles. You need to get ahead of this. But I couldn't get ahead of anything. I was buried under an avalanche. Amazon pulled their contract renewal, $2 million gone. A startup in Portland we'd mentored for 3 years suddenly went with a competitor. Our receptionist quit, saying she didn't want to work for a company under investigation. Investigation? There was no investigation. Just Linda's poison spreading through Seattle's tech community like wildfire. Jeremy showed up at my house in Bellevue on a Thursday evening. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I got an offer from Richard," he said quietly. "He'll buy out my share at market value. He'll unfreeze enough assets to make it happen. I can walk away clean." "Jeremy, you were Steven's best friend." "Steven's dead, Kat." His voice broke. "And I've got a wife and 2 kids in Redmond whose college funds depend on this business surviving. Richard says if I stay with you, we'll lose everything in litigation."
"I'm sorry."
"I really am." He left. That night, alone in our house, the house where Steven and I had painted the walls together, where we'd celebrated every victory and weathered every storm, I finally shattered. I collapsed on our bedroom floor, clutching Steven's pillow, screaming into the emptiness. The business we'd built was crumbling. My reputation was destroyed. Everyone was abandoning ship. And somewhere in Seattle, Linda and Richard were probably toasting their victory with expensive wine. I had nothing left. No husband. No allies. No way to fight back. Or so I thought. Because that's when I remembered the storage unit. The one Steven had rented 3 months before he died. The one he'd never explained. I found the key inside Steven's favorite book, The Count of Monte Cristo. Ironic, considering what was about to happen. I was packing his clothes for donation, something the grief counselor in Kirkland said would help with closure. As if boxing up my dead husband's flannel shirts could close anything. I pulled the book from his nightstand, and a small silver key tumbled out, taped inside the back cover. No label. No note. Just a key with a red plastic tag stamped with numbers. S. 247. Steven and I didn't have secrets. We shared everything. Bank accounts, passwords, dreams, fears. So why had he hidden a key in a book about betrayal and revenge? My hands trembled as I Googled the numbers. They matched the format for secure space storage in Renton, just off I-405. 20 minutes later, I was standing in front of Unit S, 247, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it echoing in the concrete corridor. The key turned. The metal door rolled up with a screech. Inside was almost empty. Just a large safe sitting in the center of the unit like a tomb. The combination lock stared at me, demanding numbers I didn't have. I tried our anniversary, nothing. His birthday, nothing. My birthday, nothing. I was about to give up when I remembered. Steven always said the day we launched Morrison Tech was the day his real life began. April 15th, 2013. The safe clicked open. Inside, Steven's silver laptop, 3 external hard drives, and accordion file bursting with documents. On top, a yellow sticky note in Steven's handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm sorry. Protect yourself. S." My breath caught. Protect myself? From what? I grabbed everything and rushed back to my car, suddenly paranoid that Linda or Richard might appear. Back home, I locked every door, closed every curtain, and opened Steven's laptop with shaking hands. The desktop had 4 folders. Insurance. Richard, evidence. Mom's finances. For Catherine, watch first. My cursor hovered over that last folder. Part of me didn't want to know. Didn't want to shatter whatever memories I had left of the man I loved. But I clicked anyway. Inside were video files. Dozens of them. All dated within the last 6 months of Steven's life. The most recent was from 3 weeks before the accident. I double-clicked. Steven's face filled the screen. He looked exhausted, older somehow. He was sitting in this very storage unit, the safe visible behind him. Catherine. His voice cracked my heart open all over again. "If you're watching this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry." Tears streamed down my face. I reached toward the screen like I could touch him one more time. "My family." He rubbed his face, looking broken. "God, Kat, I've been such a fool. Richard's been asking questions about the business. Our assets. Insurance policies. Too many questions. Mom keeps pushing me to reconnect with family, inviting us to dinners we both know you're not really welcome at. He leaned closer to the camera, his expression darkening. I started digging, following paper trails. And what I found? He shook his head. Richard embezzled $300,000 from Dad's trust fund before he died. Been doing it for 3 years. Mom knows. She's been covering for him, moving money around, falsifying records. They're drowning in debt, Kat. Richard's got gambling problems in Vegas, bad investments in crypto. They're desperate. My mouth went dry. I have everything documented on these drives. Bank records, recordings, emails where Mom admits she knew. I was going to confront them after our anniversary, report them if they didn't pay Dad's money back. Stephen's eyes filled with tears. But yesterday, Richard asked me if I'd updated my will lately. Asked who inherits the business if something happens to me. He was smiling when he asked Kat. Smiling. The video flickered. If you're watching this, it means something happened to me. It means they won. Or they think they won. His jaw clenched. Everything you need is here. Every crime, every lie, every scheme. Take them down, baby. Burn them to the ground. The screen went black. I sat in the darkness of our bedroom, Stephen's final words echoing in my head. Burn them to the ground. Oh, my love. You have no idea what I'm about to do. I played the video again. And again. And again. Each time, Stephen's words hit harder. Each time, the pieces fell into sickening place. The third video file was longer, 18 minutes of my husband systematically destroying his family's lies. I watched as Stephen walked me through a labyrinth of financial documents on screen, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. This is Richard's personal account at First National Bank in Spokane, he explained, highlighting transactions. Watch these withdrawals. July 2020, $15,000. September 2020, $22,000. February 2021, $30,000. Every single one corresponds to transfers out of Dad's trust fund at Columbia Bank. Stephen clicked to another window, emails between Linda and Richard. From Linda Morrison to Richard Morrison. Subject, Dad's account. Moved another $18,000 to your Wells Fargo. Be more careful. Use it to pay off those Vegas people before they come looking. And for God's sake, stop gambling. My stomach turned. There's more, Stephen's recorded voice continued. Richard took out loans using Dad's house in Tacoma as collateral, without Dad's knowledge. When Dad died last year, the house should have been worth $600,000. But it's mortgaged to hell. Mom gets maybe $100,000 after everything's paid off. He pulled up another file, credit card statements showing Richard's trips to Las Vegas, Atlantic City, even a casino cruise to the Bahamas. Charges at MGM Grand, Bellagio, Caesar's Palace. Tens of thousands of dollars. And here's where it gets really interesting, Stephen said, his voice dropping. 3 weeks ago, Richard came to my office. Said he was worried about me. Wanted to make sure my affairs were in order. Asked who inherits Morrison Tech if something happens to me. I told him you do. Everything goes to you. You should have seen his face, Kat. The video cut to a new recording, grainy, shot from what looked like Stephen's phone propped on a desk. Richard was visible across from him in Stephen's office at Morrison Tech. Come on, man. Mom deserves something, Richard was saying. She raised you. Sacrificed everything after Dad died. You really gonna leave her with nothing? She gets the house, Stephen replied carefully. And Dad's life insurance. That house is worth pennies after the market crash. Be reasonable, Stephen. Sign over part of the business. Make it official. Take care of your blood. Catherine and I built this company. Catherine's not family. Richard's voice turned cold. You've been with her, what, 12 years? That's nothing. Blood is forever, little brother. Don't forget where you came from. The recording ended. I felt sick. Stephen's face reappeared on screen, and this time his eyes were hard as stone. I'm going to confront them the day after our anniversary. Give them one chance to pay back what they stole from Dad and walk away. If they refuse, I'm going to the police and the IRS. But Catherine, he leaned toward the camera. I need you to hear this. If you're watching this video, it means I didn't make it to that confrontation. It means something happened. His next words came slowly, deliberately. The accident on I-5. My brakes had been serviced 2 days before at Mike's Auto in Bellevue. I have the receipt. There was nothing wrong with them. If my brakes failed, if the police say mechanical failure, Kat, it wasn't an accident. The room spun. I know how this sounds. I know it seems paranoid. But Richard asked me about my life insurance 3 times in 2 weeks. $300,000 plus the business? That's motive, baby. That's a reason to. He couldn't finish the sentence. Neither could I. Everything you need is on these drives. Bank records proving the embezzlement. Recordings of Mom admitting she helped cover it up. Richard's debts. He owes $180,000 to loan sharks in Vegas. They sent threatening letters to his apartment in Capitol Hill. I have photos of everything. Stephen's expression shifted, grief, rage, love, all tangled together. If anything happens to me, protect yourself. Don't trust them. Don't believe their tears or their lawyers or their fake documents. They will come for everything we built, and they will destroy you to get it. He paused, his voice breaking. Destroy them first, Catherine. Burn it all down. I love you. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you myself. The video ended with Stephen reaching for the camera, his wedding ring catching the light. I sat in our dark bedroom. My tears dried up, my hands steady. The police report said mechanical failure, brake line rupture, tragic accident. But Stephen's car had been serviced 48 hours before he died. I opened the accordion file. Inside, the receipt from Mike's auto shop. Certification that every system, including brakes, passed inspection with flying colors. My phone buzzed. A text from Gerald Moss, their lawyer. Mrs. Morrison, my clients are prepared to file suit tomorrow unless you sign. This is your final warning. I smiled. Actually smiled. They thought I was broken. Thought grief had made me weak. They had no idea what was coming. Margaret Chen's office overlooked Elliott Bay, and the view matched her reputation. Sharp, unforgiving, and completely dominant. They're going to wish they'd never heard your name, she said, reviewing Stephen's evidence with the intensity of a predator, sizing up prey. Margaret was a legend in Seattle legal circles, the attorney who'd taken down 3 Fortune 500 companies for fraud and made grown men cry on the witness stand. If anyone could destroy Linda and Richard, it was her. This is gold, she continued, clicking through the bank records. Embezzlement, falsified documents, possible conspiracy. But here's our problem, Catherine. The business ownership claim is separate from the criminal evidence. Right now, it's your word against theirs that Stephen didn't willingly sign over 50%. But the embezzlement proves motive. In criminal court, yes. But civil court is different. We need them to incriminate themselves on the business fraud specifically. We need them to make mistakes, get sloppy, admit things they shouldn't. She leaned back, a dangerous smile forming. We need to make them panic. That's when I met Paul Dawson, a former FBI agent turned private investigator who operated out of a modest office in Tacoma. He looked like somebody's friendly uncle until you saw his eyes. Cold, calculating, missing nothing. Your husband was smart, Paul said, reviewing Stephen's recordings. He documented everything legally. This is all admissible. But Ms. Chon is right. We need to catch them in the act. Make them so scared they do something stupid. How? Paul grinned. You become the bait. The plan was simple, brilliant, and required me to become the best actress Seattle had ever seen. Starting that week, I fell apart publicly. Missed meetings with clients, showed up to the office looking disheveled, stopped answering emails. I let rumors spread that I was having a breakdown. Sarah from Microsoft called concerned. I let my voice crack, told her I couldn't cope, couldn't think straight. But privately, I started feeding Richard breadcrumbs. I sent him a text. Found some of Stephen's old files. Interesting reading. We should talk. Then another. Stephen kept secrets. More than I realized. Did you know about the storage unit? And finally, he documented everything, Richard. Everything. Paul had installed cameras throughout my Bellevue house, hidden in smoke detectors, wall clocks, even the doorbell. We watched and waited. It took 3 days. I was at Margaret's office reviewing depositions when Paul called. We've got him. Richard just pulled up to your house in a black Lexus. He's checking if anyone's home. My heart raced. He's breaking in? Watching him pick your back door lock right now. Amateur hour. He's wearing gloves though. Knows what he's doing. Margaret grabbed her laptop, pulling up the live camera feeds. We watched Richard move through my house like a thief, rifling through Stephen's office, our bedroom, even the garage. He was searching frantically, sweating through his expensive Brooks Brothers shirt. He's looking for the laptop, I whispered. Which is safely in our evidence lockup, Margaret confirmed. Let him dig. Richard tore through drawers, files, closets. His phone rang. Linda's name flashed on our audio feed. Anything, she demanded. Nothing yet. Are you sure she has it? She texted you about documents, about the storage unit. Stephen must have left something. Find it before she figures out what it means. That laptop could destroy everything, Richard. We're talking federal prison. I know that, Mom. I'm doing the best wait. There's a safe in the closet. We watched him try combinations frantically. Our anniversary. Stephen's birthday. The company founding date. Nothing worked. He punched the wall in frustration, leaving a visible dent. More evidence. This was a mistake, he hissed into the phone. We should have handled this differently. Maybe if you hadn't pushed me to fake Stephen's signature. Margaret's eyes lit up. There it is. We didn't have a choice. Linda snapped. You owed those people in Vegas $180,000. They were threatening to kill you. Stephen's business was the only way out. And now his pathetic widow is going to ruin everything because you can't find one stupid laptop. Richard left 20 minutes later, empty-handed and panicking. Paul high-fived me. Breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit fraud, admission of forgery, all on camera with crystal-clear audio. Catherine, we just won your case. But Margaret held up a hand, her smile predatory. Oh no, we're not done yet. Now we set the trap. I looked at the frozen image of Richard on the screen, his face twisted with desperation and rage. Stephen's voice echoed in my head. Burn them to the ground. What's the trap? I asked. Margaret's eyes glinted like a shark sensing blood in the water. We invite them to negotiate a settlement. Make them think they've won. And then we destroy them in front of everyone. I wore black to the settlement meeting. Seemed appropriate for a funeral, theirs. Gerald Moss's office occupied the 20th floor of Columbia Tower in downtown Seattle, all glass windows and leather furniture designed to intimidate. I arrived exactly on time, shoulders hunched, eyes red from strategically applied eye drops. The perfect picture of a defeated widow ready to surrender. Linda and Richard were already there, dressed like they were attending a yacht club luncheon. Linda wore pearls. Pearls. To the meeting where they planned to rob me blind. Catherine, dear, Linda cooed, not even bothering to stand. I'm glad you've come to your senses. Richard smirked from his chair, legs crossed, completely relaxed. He thought he'd won. They both did. Gerald cleared his throat, sliding papers across his mahogany desk. Mrs. Morrison, we've prepared a settlement agreement we believe is fair to all parties. You retain 30% ownership of Morrison Tech Solutions, while Mrs. Morrison Sr. and Richard Morrison acquire 70%, with Richard assuming the role of CEO. Additionally, the Bellevue property transfers to 30%. I whispered, my voice breaking perfectly. Stephen and I built that company from nothing. 30%. Be reasonable, Richard said, his tone condescending. You're getting more than you deserve, considering you isolated Stephen from his family for 12 years. Mom's been very generous. Linda nodded sadly. This is what Stephen wanted, dear. It's time to accept reality and move forward. Sign the papers, and we can all put this ugliness behind us. I stared at the settlement agreement, my hand trembling as I reached for the pen. Richard leaned forward, victorious smile spreading across his face. Could I have just a moment? I asked quietly. It's a lot to process. Gerald checked his watch. Of course. Take your time. I pulled out my phone, pretending to steady myself. Instead, I sent a single text. Now. The office door opened. Margaret Chin strode in like an avenging angel in a Prada suit, followed by Paul Dawson and two Seattle police detectives, Michael Torres and Jennifer Huang, both looking extremely interested in Richard. Gerald stood abruptly. What is the meaning of? Sit down, Mr. Moss, Margaret commanded. You're going to want to hear this. Richard's face drained of color. Linda's hand flew to her throat. What is this? Linda demanded. Gerald, do something. Margaret placed a tablet on the desk, turning it to face them. Catherine Morrison is not signing anything. Instead, I'm here to inform you that we're filing criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, forgery, conspiracy, and breaking and entering. That's absurd. Richard jumped to his feet. We have a legal document. You have a forged document. Margaret clicked the tablet. A forensic report appeared. We had Stephen Morrison's signature analyzed by 3 independent experts. The document you presented was created using a signature stamp, likely made from a scanned copy of his real signature. Sloppy work, Richard. Gerald's face went white. Furthermore, Margaret continued, we have your fingerprints all over the original document. Which is fascinating, since you claimed Stephen signed this in Mr. Moss's office 6 months ago, and you supposedly weren't present. She clicked again. Video footage appeared. Richard breaking into my house. 4 days ago, you illegally entered Mrs. Morrison's home searching for evidence. During that break-in, you were recorded on multiple cameras discussing the forged signature with your mother. Linda and Richard's voices filled the office. Maybe if you hadn't pushed me to fake Stephen's signature, we didn't have a choice. Richard lunged toward me. You bitch. You set me up. Detective Torres moved faster, slamming Richard against the wall, handcuffs clicking. Richard Morrison, you're under arrest. She's the criminal. Linda shrieked, pointing at me. She manipulated my son. She poisoned him against his own family. She probably killed him. Margaret smiled coldly. Interesting theory, Mrs. Morrison. Let's hear what you really think. She pressed play on another recording, Linda's voice crystal clear. We need to take everything that stupid girl built. Stephen's dead. The business should be ours. She's nothing without him. And Richard responding, once we get control of Morrison Tech, we can sell it off, pay my debts, and never worry about money again. Linda's face crumbled. How did you? Stephen recorded everything. I said quietly, standing now, shoulders back. Every conversation, every threat, every crime. He knew exactly what you were. Gerald Moss grabbed his briefcase, hands shaking. I had no knowledge of fraud or forgery. I was provided with what appeared to be legitimate documents. I'm withdrawing as counsel immediately. You're not going anywhere, Detective Huang said. We have questions about your role in this conspiracy. Richard was screaming as they dragged him toward the door. Linda collapsed into her chair, mascara streaming down her face. All her elegant composure shattered. Margaret leaned close to them. You tried to steal from a widow. You forged documents. You broke into her home. And worst of all, you underestimated her. I looked at Richard, then Linda, the 2 people who'd tried to destroy me. Stephen asked me to burn you to the ground. I said softly, consider yourselves ash. 6 months later, I walked into King County Superior Court in downtown Seattle with my head held high. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, former colleagues, people who'd watched Linda's whisper campaign destroy my reputation, now hungry to see how this story ended. Margaret sat beside me, immaculate as always. Across the aisle, Richard looked hollow in his orange jumpsuit, nothing left of the smug predator who'd invaded my home. Linda sat in the gallery, aged 10 years and 6 months, clutching a cheap handbag. The pearls were gone. So was everything else. Judge Andrea Wallace, a no-nonsense woman from Spokane with 30 years on the bench, reviewed the final documents. The silence was suffocating. Mr. Morrison, she finally said, her voice cutting through the courtroom like a blade. You embezzled $300,000 from your deceased father's trust fund. You forged legal documents to defraud your sister-in-law. You broke into her home. You conspired to steal a business built on 12 years of honest labor. Richard's lawyer, a public defender who'd tried his best with an impossible case, said nothing. The court sentences you to 7 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. You will repay all stolen funds with interest. You are prohibited from any contact with Catherine Morrison for life. The gavel struck. Richard's head dropped. In the gallery, Linda let out a sound like a dying animal. As for the civil matter, Judge Wallace continued, turning to me, Mrs. Morrison, your countersuit for damages, emotional distress, slander, and legal fees is awarded in full. $2 million plus ownership confirmation of 100% of Morrison Tech Solutions. Margaret squeezed my hand. We'd won. Completely, devastatingly won. But the judge wasn't finished. Mrs. Linda Morrison, you are hereby removed as trustee of the Morrison family estate. All remaining assets will be placed in independent management. You face civil penalties totaling $500,000 for conspiracy and aiding fraud. Linda stood, shaking. Your Honor, I have nothing left. I lost my son, my home, everything. You lost those things when you chose greed over integrity, Judge Wallace said coldly. When you chose to victimize a grieving widow. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck again, final as a headstone. I was granted the opportunity to address the court. I stood, feeling every eye on me, and spoke directly to Linda and Richard. You thought grief made me weak. You saw my tears at Stephen's funeral and mistook them for defeat. You gambled that a broken heart meant a broken spirit. My voice didn't waver. Not anymore. You were wrong. Stephen left me something more valuable than any business or bank account. He left me the truth. And the truth destroyed you. Richard wouldn't look at me, but Linda's eyes burned with impotent rage. I hope prison teaches you what Stephen tried to teach you in life. That family means loyalty, not theft. That love means sacrifice, not exploitation. I turned to leave, then paused. And I hope every day you're behind bars, you remember the widow you tried to break. Because she's the reason you're there. Outside the courthouse, Seattle rain misting the streets, I met Donald and Patricia Morrison, Stephen's elderly uncle and aunt from Olympia. They were in their 80s, the real victims of Richard's embezzlement. Their trust fund, built over 40 years of teaching careers, had been gutted. Mrs. Morrison, Donald said softly, hands trembling. We heard what Richard did. We're so ashamed. Don't be. I handed Patricia an envelope. This is a cashier's check for $375,000. Your stolen money, plus interest, plus extra for what you've suffered. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. We can't accept. Yes, you can. Stephen would want this. He documented everything to protect you, even if he didn't live to finish what he started. Donald broke down, this proud 83-year-old man crying on a Seattle street corner. Our nephew tried to destroy you, and you're saving us. I don't understand. Stephen taught me that real family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart. I left them there, whole again, their retirement restored. One last stop. Sunset Hills Cemetery in Bellevue was quiet, peaceful. I found Stephen's grave easily. I'd been here every week for 6 months, talking to him, updating him on the war we were winning together. I placed fresh lilies on the headstone, the flowers he'd always brought me on Fridays. We won, my love, I whispered, touching the cold marble. They tried to take everything we built. They thought you were gone, and I was defenseless. But you protected me, even from beyond. You left me weapons, and I used every single one. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I could almost feel him there. Morrison Tech is thriving. We landed 3 new contracts this month. Jeremy came crawling back. I told him to lose my number. Your real legacy isn't just the business, Stephen. It's teaching me that strength isn't about never falling. It's about what you do when you get back up. I stood, shoulders back, no longer the shattered widow who'd collapsed on this very ground 6 months ago. They learned not to play with a broken-hearted widow. Because I wasn't broken, my darling. I was forged. I walked away from that grave transformed. Not the girl who'd met Steven in a Portland coffee shop. Not the naive entrepreneur who'd thought hard work guaranteed protection. I was something new, something harder, something unstoppable. Because grief doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it makes you unstoppable. Hit subscribe if you believe family should never use grief as a weapon to steal what you built. Only greedy vultures like Linda and Richard won't subscribe. Don't be like them.